right, Kyle. So we wrapped up part one with your deployment to Afghanistan, really your baptism by fire, like to the maximum extent, and then meeting your wife, her giving you the push to go to selection. You did it. You go through the Q course. So when did you earn your Green Beret? When did you become a Green Beret?
So I got my Green Beret. This was 2009. Yeah, and it was an awesome day. Up to that point, it was the best day of my life. I remember thinking though, putting it on, I was like, I don't feel any different than I did 20 minutes ago. Growth comes incrementally. You don't realize it all at once. You think like you're gonna put it on and have this like platinum plate of armor, and you don't. You're just like the same guy. But it was a really good day. I knew I was going to 7th, and it was funny because I went to selection and I got selected. I blew selection out of the water. It was really good selection. Made some really good friends there. It had been run differently than it was run the first time I was there, so there was a little more verbal action going on. I felt like it was harder, and because I had done Restrepo and I had done the deployments and had a little bit more experience, a lot of people considered me a leader at selection. So I remember just an anecdote that there was a guy there and he was just whining and complaining about everything. And I said something under my breath about like, if this isn't for you, you just need to quit. And they stopped the patrol. They stopped the movement. And the cadre came up to me. He's like, they said, say that again. And I thought, oh, I'm in trouble. I'm not a team player. And I told him he needs to just quit and save himself if this isn't for him. If he's not intrinsically motivated enough to carry this ammo can full of sand or whatever we were doing. And he's like, good. Now turn and say it to his face. And this cadre, years later, I found out what he was doing. And I told him, I was like, hey, man, you need to, I reiterated it. You need to quit if this isn't for you and you can't find the motivation to be a team player and be an asset cog in this wheel. Because we have to move whatever this thing is and it weighs a ton on top of our rucks. You need to stop whining and bitching, crying and whimpering. Just go. And he started crying when I said it. And I was like, and then the cadre made me repeat it to him, like face to face, 6 inches away. And I said it again. He started crying and he quit. I was like, I felt terrible. But, later on, it didn't take long for me to realize, like, I probably saved the regiment and whatever team he was going to and his guys. I think he was a captain. I'm almost positive he was a captain. A lot of stress later on because he was just a negative Nancy about everything. Like, yeah, everything sucks. Everybody's sucking. And that night I remember getting in, we had a terrible team movement. I think we got like 2 hours of sleep and, thinking I was proud of myself for having saved the regiment. And the rest of the team events, I was looked upon as a leader. And I could see myself going through the first time and the variances of who I had become. I was like, nice, sick. I got this. But no, it was really good. And another story, I was going through, after you pass selection, you're given like a wish list of languages you'd like to speak, if I remember correctly, and then MOS you would like, and sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. I was very fortunate because I got the MOS I wanted, 18 Bravo, but I had French, and I knew that French would lead me to third group most likely, which was Africa, North Africa-ish. And I was like, man, I really don't want French. And I looked over at a friend of mine that was in selection with me and whatnot, and he was just telling me like, come over here, and then I had met a guy, I won't say his name, and he was from B37, and he knows who he is. And I had met him when I was with the 173rd when we had to do a quick reaction to one of our sister companies getting hit, and an SF team came. And I've met several people from Bravo Company 3rd Battalion 7th Group, and they were there, and oh man, they were in BDUs and had beards, and I remember thinking they were the coolest guys. Their weapons were so cool, and I was in ACUs with a ripped crotch, and I said, oh, and I got to talking to him. And then later on, I was going through one of the PAX terminals to fly out, and I'm sitting in there, and there's these church pews, and these girls come in. It's just me and this SF guy, Special Forces guy, and I'm looking over at him. He's dusty and gross. I was like, he's the coolest guy I've ever seen. These girls come in, and they move the benches away, and they start dancing, and they can see us both looking at them, and they stop, they pause the music, and they say, this is for American Idol night on the fob. You could get something going like this on your fob if you wanted to. And he looks over at me and he's like, are they serious? I said, I guess. He didn't know I was at Restrepo, I don't think, but I didn't know what he had been doing, but I was like, they're insane. Well, I recognized him and he recognized me. And then years later at the Q course, I'm in the French line and he is an instructor, that same guy. And he's walking through and he looks at me and he goes, "Hey." And I said, "Hey," we got to talking. He's like, "Did you want French?" I said, "No, I put Spanish." He's like, "Hold on a minute." And he grabbed some poor kid out of the Spanish line and moved him to the French line and moved me to the Spanish line.
So he just screwed some dude.
Some dude that was going to go to 7th is now going to 3rd.
Poor guy.
Poor guy. I still don't know who it was. And to this day, he saved me because I did everything I could.
I don't know. Maybe he was happy about it, actually.
He might have had a good career. I never looked back at him because he was really butthurt. It's like they drug him over to the French line. And I remember I was like, I can't look at him. I know he's mad. So I'm just going to stay in the Spanish line. It's a running joke, but I still talk to this guy. He works on 7th Group as a civilian. I still talk to him about that. And I said, that poor guy, I don't know what happened to him, but he got me into 7th Group. And slowly I trickled. And my first company was B37.
Wow.
I did it by saying different things and kind of like weaseling my way over there, being like, yeah, he said it was good that I just report to BCO. And they're like, okay, report to BCO. Just different things that I did to get to the company that I had met while I was a regular Army guy that inspired me. I showed up to a team in BCO 3rd Battalion 7th Group, and they'd had some tribulations. The movie was just coming out. It was at its height at Fort Bragg, being shown at theaters. People were starting to know who I was, and I know that I was a hard worker, and it was good. It was solid. I got to the team. I in process. I didn't know what I was doing. 7th Group was just about to move. I guess a year and a half or 2 years out from moving to Florida. Yeah. So I got to take that over. I was in one of the add-on teams. So 3rd Battalion, 7th Group used to be forward deployed, Oconus, and they came back. So when they came back and were reintegrated, they were given these like really terrible team rooms in barracks areas, like way off to the side at Fort Bragg.
Because they're going to be leaving soon anyway.
Yeah, so it was just like, it was funny.
Yeah, the redheaded stepchild treatment.
Oh, yeah. The rooms were like slanted because they were like broom closets, like at the end of a building. So you had to like walk half of it with your head down. But it was so cool. The doors had like keypads on them.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so cool. You could only go in if you were on that team, and you had I was on top of the world. And I'll never forget, they gave you a school sheet, like, hey, to fill out the top 5 like training pathways you would like to take. And a guy who's also one of my closest friends was the 18 Fox, the intelligence sergeant on the team. And he leaned over my ear. He was a former RI, and he said, "That better say Ranger 5 times." And I was like, okay. So I wrote Ranger 5 times in a row.
I bet, see, the irony there is, I bet every RI in the world would say the exact same thing to you. Like, he wouldn't even need to know you. He'd be like, "That better say Ranger 5 times."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. So I wrote Ranger 5 times. And I don't remember if it was him or somebody, another RI, but they once said to me, they were like, you can have your long tab, but you're always it's just gonna look like 2 buns with no meat between it. And I was like, that's really good. And now I can't unsee that. I always like look at that. I'm like, just no meat patty.
There is, I mean, and I don't have a Ranger tab, but there is something about the Ranger tab that is just like universally in the Army, like everyone gets it.
Yeah.
Like there's just,
you go through it and you're like, ugh, it is what it is.
We're better than you, and we know it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's
100%. And it's a funny thing is before I got to go to Ranger School, I just got my beret, and Sal Junta, a friend of mine from the Los Angeles, ended up being the first
Medal of Honor.
Yeah,
recipient.
the first living Medal of Honor recipient. I went up to DC to attend his ceremony and stuff like that. And it was an awesome time. I got to see all my old friends. I was the only one that had gone SF. A couple of people had gone Ranger Battalion. There were still Ranger tabs. So I got a lot of guff for not having one amongst my friends. Even though I was the only one with the long tab, I still felt inadequate. I was like, I still don't have everything I need to be cool enough, you know.
The team I deployed on, all the infantrymen with Ranger tabs, they would mock the long tab. And I was like, I don't get that. I get it now. I didn't at the time. I was an artilleryman. I got no dog in this fight. But
and people always say, they always give the excuse like, well, why? I've been to college with the long tab. Why would I go back to high school or something like that? And I said, that's the most ridiculous thing. They're 2 different things, first of all. And I think it's way better to have both, because you have very varying perspectives on leadership
from both kind of points of view.
And believe it or not, the Q course does have its Ranger School type portion of it, and how you do things is vastly different a lot of times, because you're doing.
You mean like Robin Sage or whatever? Or
no, it's like the small unit tactics section of it, and it's essentially a condensed Ranger School. It's not as spread out and real stressful, but the way we do troop leading procedures and the way you do things is slightly different than it is, because it's also assuming in the Q course that you're not only leading Americans, but you Americans are leading whatever, how many engaged
Yeah,
troops
right,
to
right.
further their objective. So it's
Yeah,
slightly
it
different.
has to be different.
Yeah. And that's why when I went to Ranger school after having a long tab, I was very careful to say, like, okay, how would you do this as a Ranger versus
Mhm.
like, and I would explain, like, I know it this
Smart.
way. Do you know it this? And they're like, oh no, that's great. Do you do it this way? I'm like, okay. Trying to get in their pocket a little bit.
That's a pro tip. Well, no, that's a pro tip on how to, we were talking about this at lunch of you could absolutely be the guy who knows better, right? Are you gonna actually like let that message sink in with someone if you just hit him in the face with it and like, listen here, you shut up, I know better than you, blah blah blah, right? I'm smart, you're dumb, or is it gonna work a lot better with what you just did? Well, how would you do that as a Ranger?
For sure.
I love to hear your perspective. All right, now this guy's interested in what
Mhm.
you have to say back, right? And that's a lesson I learned too late in life. I wish I would have known that as a young,
Yeah.
early on. But yeah, wise, very wise.
Yeah.
So,
You got to know what you don't know, and you got to know what they know, and, take all advice. Like, you never know enough,
mhm,
and you can't have enough perspectives. So I use that.
right.
But it was great going to Ranger school.
So that was pretty. So you went pretty close after becoming a Green Beret, then? Like, it
yeah,
wasn't
I
that
went
long?
pretty close. It was
Okay.
it was probably like 2 years. I only got one school prior to it. I got some surveillance course or something. But yeah, I went pretty right on, and I was super fired up
That's
about
quite
it.
the grind, bro.
Yeah.
So one of the worst deployments the Army's ever seen in the GWAT. Then go to the Q course, and then go to Ranger. Like, bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
You're like, I'll just take all the suck as fast as humanly possible.
It's funny because after Ranger school, I was like,
I mean, that's basically what you did.
yeah. And I was like 26 or 27. And I was like, I don't feel like your body should hurt this bad. But it really does. I'm like, I feel like I'm 80 years old right now, and it went really good. Like, I got to do a couple Southcom trips,
Nice.
had an Afghan trip in there that was really awesome. We ended up getting put up in a former British, what was a former castle in the South in Afghanistan. And this was my first trip with SF to the Middle East, and oh, it was awesome. If you Wikipedia it, the Google the Battle of Maywand, it was when the British occupied Afghanistan, and they had
It's like
built,
the 1800s. Right?
yeah, and there's like old paintings of it about the Afghans taking it back from the British forces, and there's these old cannons, like 19th century cannons and stuff. And it was we lived in this castle that they had occupied. Then the Taliban took it over, and it had all this like opium cooking stuff everywhere in it, and like the ceiling was all burnt with this like black goop from the opium stuff. So that was crazy. And then we only got to stay there for a couple months because it ended up got like a monsoon, and it just tore the castle apart. So we moved, but that deployment was really cool, and I had a really good time there. I learned a ton. Had a couple more head injuries to add on. And I kept on being
nice.
We were in a big firefight, and the old RG-33s had a hatch that you had to open, but you had to open it far enough to where it would hook on and stay open.
Right.
And I had pushed it up to get up and fix a gun during this big fight, and
it didn't lock.
It didn't lock. It got shot. It had gotten hit or something, and it came back down and smoked me in the head, and just knocked me down. And I was out cold for a
Things
second.
are heavy.
On that.
They're like at least 50
Yeah,
pounds.
they're hard to get open.
Yeah, they're hard.
And I remember being like, okay.
I mean, it's literally armored steel or whatever it is. I mean, it's very heavy metal.
You remember,
Yeah.
like, even trying to get it open, I was like, strike two.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm a small dude. Like, having to open the hatches, I was always like, I needed every ounce of even the freaking like MATV doors.
Yeah.
I'd, like, throw my shoulder into it to get them going.
That's why they had the locks and all the things, so you could.
Yeah, dude.
But yeah, that was a really good trip. I learned a lot. I had a lot of good times with that team. That's where I learned how to become an SF guy. And the leaders on that team, Dave Nolan and Ash and Ariana. He was on a sister team, but like those guys, they really didn't hold my hand, but they showed me what it meant to be like a really good Green Beret.
Yeah.
And I'm forever grateful to them, because I have a feeling that I would have gone in with the same. I would have gotten more lackadaisical and been the same kind of just fly by the seat of my pants kind of guy if they weren't teaching me about diligence and purpose and enjoying your craft. I always read these anecdotes of like the Japanese tea ceremony and things like that, and just enjoying the process.
Yeah.
And they kind of hit that home for me. And so that deployment was really good. And then throughout the time, I deployed several other times. I've deployed close to 20 times to Central and South America.
Wow.
doing different things down there. And I've always had a blast down there. I've been to almost every country down there, obviously not Venezuela, but, but I've had a blast. I've been able to get qualled. You know, everybody always asks. I've had a really strange SF career because I've never done instructor time. I've never had to go to SWIC to do instructor time. And it's only because early on I knew one guy that was able to do that. And he gave me a piece of advice. He said, dig into the regs and all the stipulations on how you stay operational. So I did, like with a fine tooth comb. And I was like, okay, if I do this long here and I do this and I go over to this job and then I get this qualification, it adds 2 more years of retainability. And I did this ping pong game where I've been on several teams, and some people might look negatively upon that, and it has nothing to do with any negative factors about me being. I was never removed from a team really for any kind of actions. It was just me trying to figure out how to stay operational.
Yeah.
I volunteered for everything that came down the pipe, you know, with me and my wife kind of being long distance back and forth so much that I always had a physical ready. So I knew that X school or Y training would keep me there, and I had the physical ready because so many times when dudes are deployed or gone or on leave, hey, we have a slot to this or this opened up. And if you're the only one in the team room and you have a packet ready, so I had packets ready for everything. I was like, I'll do everything you want me to do. Let me know. I'm going to crush this out of the park. Yeah, I did. And, you know, I took one admin job at group early on. My wife had just taken the bar, and she had a waiting period to take another bar in a different state. So it kept me from moving. I took that. We had our first kid and our first child. And then that's when I immediately went to the CRIF.
Okay.
So yeah, I had a few trips in B37.
Can you tell the audience a little bit about what that unit is versus like a typical ODA? Or?
Yeah. It's early on it was called the Commanders in Extremis Force, the CIF or the CIF, and there's a lot of podcasts and stories about who the CIF is. They were changed early on to the CRIF, the Crisis Response Force, and you were essentially a specially selected unit, and you were OPCON or operationally controlled to the geographic combatant commander of your AOR. So ours is Southcom.
That was a lot of hang on. Area of responsibility is AOR.
Yeah,
so that's usually like a whole theater.
Yeah, the theater
Army is operating.
Yeah,
in.
They've got the Southern, Pacific Command with the Asia and stuff like that. And then each special forces group, was assigned to a region.
Yep.
Their AOR, area of responsibility, and then each geographic combatant commander or GCC has their crisis response force. So you were essentially on their call timeline. We used to call it being on the beeper. I don't know when they stopped having beepers. I never had a beeper, but you were on call.
It's like an ER doctor or whatever.
Yeah.
You get paged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to go to a special school, a special shooting school, close quarters battle school, CQB school, to even be considered. It was an intense process. You have to be, interviewed, go through their train up, then go to the school. You have to be recommended. And you go to this, and your mission kind of changes a little bit from being on a regular ODA.
Yeah, so it's less of like developing, with and through local forces, and it's more of like specialized missions.
Yeah, you leave
protection or interdiction or something.
You leave. So special forces is mostly unconventional warfare. UW.
Yep.
We're the only ones that do it, but the CRIFs practice the other portion, which is surgical strike.
Okay, so it's like a direct action. Okay.
Yeah, and it's the only one in, like, when we were at Bragg, when 7th Group was at Bragg, they had their own like spot, and it was like covered up, and it was the coolest thing ever. You always wanted to be a part of that. You wondered what they did in there. Oh my god, they're so cool. But I got into that, and I kind of finagled my way into it because the admin job I had done said, all right, well, you get one free because you did this admin job for so long. We're going to give you your choice of school and your choice of assignment. So I immediately was like, well, I want to go to the special company and try that out. And a really good mentor of mine had said, I think this is a good spot for you. So I went and tried out and knocked it out of the park, and man, they were busy. Like, I knocked that school out of the park, and it was a tough school. It's really hard to be able to get your mind to think that fast, shoot that fast, process information that quickly, and then move on. Take everything in and discern it as fast as you can, dumping
in like a shoot house type of scenario.
Yep. And then dump away what's not needed and hold on to what is, and then develop courses of action, contingencies, and duties and responsibilities quickly enough line by line, room by room,
Right.
and it's
'Cause
really hard.
I imagine like hostage rescue is part of the
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
there's
one of the
parts of it because we have to teach it to foreign countries when
okay.
we're doing that stuff, but for the most part, it's just a lot of fast shooting and stuff like that. And it was really cool being in that company. We got to do a lot. I deployed so much in that company, and that company doesn't do typical deployments. They just do smaller
Yeah, you go
things.
for one specific thing and then kind of come back.
Yeah, and they're a lot shorter. And
Mm.
but I had a blast there. I spent like 5 years there.
Wow.
Yeah, and then just bouncing around. Then I went over to the recon teams and was able to get sniper and Halo. And I was already a sniper. I'd gone to sniper years prior, but I was able to get Halo, be qualified to be on the recon team that's attached to them. So I was able to do that. Ended up making E7 and then going to the 18 Fox course, the intelligence sergeant's course, just by chance because I had things ready. And it was funny because I had taken the shooter role. I was an 18 Bravo, which is a weapons sergeant, weapons and tactics, that kind of thing. And everybody kind of knew me as the bigger tattooed, like weightlifting guy. And they're like, he's a Bravo. He's totally Bravo. They're like, pick you out. Not a tech guy. And so when I wanted to go to the 18 Fox course, I got a lot of looks like, are you sure you got to read there, you got to decipher filter information and intelligence. And I was like, and I took it as another moment to prove the chip on my shoulder.
The
I was like,
spite engine.
Yep.
Yep.
I'll show you. And I went there and crushed it, made commandant's list. I had a blast. It definitely wasn't the sexiest thing I'd ever done.
Yeah.
But everything I've done has led to higher levels of understanding of the battlefield
Right.
and what we do. And it made me fall in love with unconventional warfare.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to join SF, especially during the war craze
Yeah, I
and
wanted
the
to.
height. But they wanted just to shoot, and they didn't know what
Yeah.
peacetime SF was about. And I fell in love with unconventional war.
Mm.
You really get, and that it even multiplied further when I went to the warrant course. You get like a PhD in unconventional warfare and how non-lethal ways can affect change operationally.
Yeah,
and
you can
strategically.
exact effects without firing a shot. Yeah.
It's crazy. The case studies you do on just insurgent groups affecting change within local governments without, just with subversion and propaganda and how you can do it. It's amazing. Really opens your eyes to things, both domestically and globally.
Yeah.
Go. I see what's going on here.
That'll be a future episode.
Yeah.
When you're retired.
really blows your mind. But yeah, I went to the Fox course. I ended up making E8. But I knew that I didn't want to do that anymore. I would have loved to have served any additional time as a team sergeant, but I didn't get a whole lot because I'd already dropped a packet as a warrant.
Okay.
And if you don't know the warrant,
what I was about to ask, like, so for those listening, I'm sure they've heard of like what special forces is, and they have some idea, but like define the role of a warrant versus pretty much everyone else, because it's a pretty specific,
yeah, for sure,
like duty that they fulfill.
So you go through the gambit of on an operational detachment alpha or an ODA and A team, as they say, and you can either be a couple MOSs, Bravos, Charlies, Deltas, or Echoes. You can be a medic. You can be a communications guy, engineer and demolitions or the weapons, and then you can go to further training once you've been that for 2 to 4 years, I think, where you become the intel sergeant. Now you're the Fox. Now you're the second in command on the enlisted side to the 18 Zulu, which is the operations sergeant, the team sergeant. And he's the personnel manager of everything, and taking care of the guys. And I did enjoy that, but I knew what was after that, and it freaked me out. I did not want to sit behind a desk ever again. And I knew that once you went down that road, it was almost like a Matrix type situation where the door opens and it shuts, and then you're done.
Yeah.
And it scared me. So I was like, you know what? I knew that going warrant was the answer. Now the warrant is in between the 18 Zulu, the operations sergeant, and the captain. And we get a captain. And sadly, they spend about 2 years on a team, and that's it. The warrant is this middleman, and they get about 5 to 6 years on a team. And they're the continuity. They're the lessons learned and the continuity between everything that's happening, everything you've done, because you build training plans and stuff years out, and then historic mission records and what you've done, what you need to do, what you're rusty on, what new skills you need to learn, new equipment you need to field, different things. They also serve as the chief of staff for everything. Everything that leaves that team room, they have to have eyes on. Some of us are better than others, as far as memos, getting dudes out the door. But what I loved most about it is that it was a relationship managing thing. Like I loved being like, hey, we need this done. All right, let me call this person. And I'm a very in-person type of guy. I'm not an email guy. So I'm like, I'm gonna go down to their office and hey, we want to get, helicopters for X, Y, or Z training. Like, all right, I met a guy in the National Guard and he's part of this helicopter unit. And, I'm going to call him up. And I love doing that. I love the networking portion of it. It really fits me. So I had just books of business cards of different things we could do. Hey, you guys want to train with the Coast Guard? Sure, let's go do that. I love doing that. Let's train with the special boat teams from the Navy.
Yeah.
And that really appealed to me. But the warrant course itself, I went there and I thought day one, I said, I went to class right after Nick Lavery. And so I got to follow the dude that did all the warrant PT with one leg. And that's all they talked about.
Yeah.
But I went there and I was like, okay, I'm going to be this warrant and they're going to teach me. And it's funny because what it is it's a course. Every warrant in the Army, whether you're going flight or, any kind of logistical job, they go to Fort Rucker. We have our own warrant course.
Yeah. It's at Bragg?
Yeah, it's at Bragg. Okay. And the first 2 weeks of it are your basic warrant course. So like apparently from what I heard, the Rucker guys come up and they like vet that you do it right to get your first like warrant officer basic training in. Which is funny. We're doing like a little bit of drill and ceremony and stuff that
you guys are all really bad at.
Really bad at it. There's like tassels hanging out of berets.
Yeah, so they did the Army 250th parade recently, and I watched it. I thought it was pretty awesome, but they had a special forces element out there. I was like, oh man, they're so bad at marching. I was just like, they're so bad, like you can just see it, like the alternate legs kicking and stuff. Like they haven't done this since basic training. I guarantee it.
Yeah, it's terrible. And we're like,
they were like sandwiched between the 82nd and the 101st. So you have like guys like real squared away on this, and then there was all these soft dudes in the middle. I'm like, oh man, yeah,
hide them from the camera.
They haven't marched in a while.
Yeah, they got skills in marching and.
It's not exactly the most practical thing, so I will put that out there.
Yeah, not linear warfare anymore.
Don't do a whole lot of marching in battle.
No,
nowadays,
for sure.
So.
No, but the warrant course is really good. Teaches you how to write, teaches you how to network, teaches you how to essentially it bridges the gap between officer language and NCO language. Yeah. And
because in order to be an SF warrant, you have had to have been an 18 something as an enlisted before. There's no other option, right? So the world. Okay.
Yeah, and there's a minimum standard. I want to say it's 3, it might be 4 years. I don't remember to go.
Okay.
I had gone after being an SF NCO for 8 or 9 years, maybe. Yeah.
You hit 8. So.
Yeah, I was one of the senior dudes to go.
Okay.
It was funny. I dropped my packet and then was getting congratulation texts about making E8. And I was like, ooh, they're not going to be happy with this. But I was doing what was best for my family and me, and I wanted to stay on a team really bad. All my peers have since gone on and are now in very high positions, and that's good for them. That's what they wanted to do. I never wanted that, the phone buzzing already stresses me out enough, even if it's like, oh, the range fell through.
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine if I was in an administrative role dealing with people and it's, one of my best friends.
The higher up you go, the more problems, man.
What my best friend in group, he took an admin job and I saw him, he took it on a Friday and I saw him that following Monday and he was complaining about something with the dumpsters. And I said, how's your first week been? He said, I already lost somebody. They're AWOL in Miami.
Oh man.
And I said, oh, yeah, that's why I went warrant. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
That's why I did this because I don't want that headache.
Yep. I get it.
Yeah, I just didn't want it, and I loved doing stuff with the boys. I still loved it, and it's funny because I've spent so much time on a team, something like 170 plus months, just operational team time, and I've had such a good time that you like this. As I started getting toward the end of my career, I heard one kid refer to me, and he's like, "Yeah," he's a football fan. He said, "We're getting Chief Steiner." He's like, he's not in his heyday, in his prime, but he's like Brett Favre, but he's like Minnesota Vikings going to the NFC Championship game. Brett Favre, like he's gonna throw some picks, and we're gonna be like, what was he thinking? But he's also gonna be miraculous sometimes. So we're just gonna have to wait this out. That's how I got described as that, and I was like, that's fair. Okay, I'm definitely not 1996 Brett Favre, but I'll throw a zinger or two here and there. It doesn't have the same oomph on the ball.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. And I was like,
You're
fair.
like Peyton Manning who had to go get the surgery, right?
Yep. I'm like right toward the end. I'm like, I still got a thing or two. And okay, good enough. But yeah,
that's funny.
I mean, I've gotten to do so many cool things, in Central and South America. I've had such a blast. I've been to Colombia so many times, or Paraguay, I've gotten to participate in the Forces Commando competition and be support for it and be a judge for it. Like I've had a blast. So
Yeah.
SOF has been really good to me. It's funny because I when I first got to B37, I knew a guy who was a combat diver, and I went and interviewed with the combat diving team, and I was like, I want to do this so bad.
Is that when you first got there?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I thought to myself, like, this is the pinnacle of what is awesome, and like, you guys are the toughest, and you knew it was because Army Dive School has the highest attrition rate of pretty much any school in the military. Like,
I've heard it's the hardest.
it's
school.
terrible.
Yeah.
It's. I went with 37 Green Berets, and 14 of us made it to the end. It's terrible,
Wow.
and it's because it's not a pipeline school. Whereas, like, I've talked to Air Force personnel or other service personnel that have gone to several different ones, and they'll tell you like Key West is the worst. It's the worst. I mean, you can ask Nick. Like, it's terrible. And Nick did it with one leg with a fin.
I don't know.
attached to
Yeah.
it. But so I was not a diver. I went to dive school late in my career because I left the CRIF SIF to go to the warrant course, and they're like, "Hey, we typically don't let new warrants go right back to the SIF. We want you to get a year or two under your
Okay.
belt on the line ODAs again." I
Right.
said, "It's fine, but I'd like to go to combat." It was the final stretches of the combat again, and they're like, "Okay, well, the only teams that don't have warrants that are going to combat are dive teams because
And
we
you were
can't
like,
get
crap.
yeah, we can't get older guys to go to dive teams because
Yeah.
I tried to go early in my career and it just never lined up.
Right.
And I was like, man, I really like to try it. I'm kind of old now, so the company or the group command chief warrant officer, he said, all right, well, if you come back and you stud it out at the warrant course, win the Ironman award or whatever, I'll give you a dive slot. So I did everything I could and ended up getting a dive slot right afterwards, going to a dive team. The Afghan trips ended up getting canceled. It was right at the time of the wind down, but I went to dive school at like 37 years old. And I was trying to.
I'm about to turn 37. I can't imagine.
It was terrible.
One, I'm a terrible swimmer. I'm not. I mean, I specifically picked the Army to not be in the water.
Yeah.
I mean, I can swim, but I can't. I'm not a diver. And,
Yeah. I'm not good at it by any means, but I had made it my mission in life to
I don't think I could do it. I just straight up don't. I can't. Yeah.
It's terrible.
Especially now, like, man, I'm
Yeah.
hurting sitting here. Just my neck
Yeah.
is killing me. I mean, so
It was
from
a
what I've heard
real-
of it, I don't know all the ins and outs, and I know you can't really talk about all the little details, but I've just heard of like, basically the hazing with the tanks on your back and letting it hit you in the head and all that.
Yeah. The hazing.
Bear crawling with your tanks on your back and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, that sounds really miserable.
Terrible. Terrible. I'm telling you. And like, I was like, I will do this. And it's funny because it's the only school where I hung on by the skin of my teeth. Like I was close to or at the very back of these formation runs that are just ball busting through the sand and the surf. And I was like, they're like, just don't fall behind the guy with the chem light.
Yeah,
he's on my heels.
And that was it. That was all you.
Yeah. I have to stay here.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was. I got kind of fat because I had read somewhere that you're more buoyant if you're chubbier. So I let myself go for like 6 months while maintaining the run standard.
Mm.
And it worked out. I ended up being pretty buoyant. I was like, that actually did work, but yeah, people dropping like flies.
Oof.
It was terrible. And I passed dive school, and it's still one of the more proud moments of my life having done that. The only event I won was they take you way out in a boat. And I'm like, all right, well, you guys have passed every gate. Your dive bubble's at the shore. And it's like a K&a-half out into the ocean. And I drove off that boat and beat everybody back to get my dive bubble. And it was a running joke. It's the only thing you've won at all.
When you get the badge.
I'm like, yeah.
I had you'll find this funny. When I was a cadet, one of my instructors was an old school ranger, like regiment guy. He had mustard stain from Grenada or I think it was Grenada. Like he did the airfield jump.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, never go to a school that doesn't give you a badge. That was straight up what he said. And it just, for me, it was just sheer dumb luck. That's how it worked out. I got to go to all these schools that gave me all the badges, but there's something about Napoleon boasted he can make a man do anything for a scrap of cloth, right? Like talking about a ribbon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at the things we put ourselves through to get a little piece of plastic you can put on your uniform,
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
It is.
So, I don't think I could have done dive, but I've heard it's unbelievably hard.
It is. I couldn't believe it. And you have to come. I always tell people, my dad asked me, he said, and my dad was a military man. He was hard on me. He was a harder dude. But I don't blame him for anything. Like that helped me become awesome, the man I am. I loved how getting woken up at 2:30 in the morning to take the trash out because you forgot to. You know, my mother was like,
consequences.
yeah, my mother was like, you don't have to do that. And I you know, I was an ass about it at the time, but now that I'm a man and a father, I'm like, get it. Got it. Checks out.
That's one of the funniest things about like growing up is, well, one, you realize that your dad or your parents, they're just people too, you know? But then also you're like, when it's your turn to kind of have to do some of those things, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, I'm sorry about all that, Dad. I get it now.
Yep, totally get it.
That's growth. That's maturity.
Yeah, 100%. I'm like, yep, that checks out. It's totally validated. Anytime he punished me, I'm like, validated. But he called me and he said, hey, how was it? And I had no words to describe after passing like the final test. I was like, I can't even break this into words. This is the most terrible thing. I had to come to grips with not passing. And what I did was my son, my middle son was playing t-ball at the time, and you have a blacked out mask. And I went down and I was like, all right, I've already blacked out once and been revived on the side of the pool with an oxygen mask under the ambulance. I'm like, all right, this is what's going to happen. You're going to go down here and you're going to give it your best shot. And if you black out and you're done, that's fine. Accept your fate. You'll be back watching the boys play t-ball. Just accept your fate. And I did. And I did it with a smile on my face. The dude that graded me was like, you were just like grinning the whole time. And I said, because I pretty much accepted, like, I'm either going to pass this or I'm going to pass out again. In which case I get to go watch him play t-ball. So I'll be fine with the outcome. And when he brought me up and I had passed, like the Superman moment, like, come at me, you know? It was a really good feeling. It's still.
Is that the one where they like have the deficiencies and kinks in your line and stuff?
They kink it all up, and like 20 minutes of just you almost passing out over and over and over again. And yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
I just don't. Like, if I had the determination to do it, I just don't think I could.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, I'm just not that good underwater.
You've got to be okay with the upper tier chance of dying, really, because the water's the equalizer.
Yeah, bro.
And that's what made me. But I knew when we were going to Afghanistan, it's
humbling.
And I wasn't on a dive team. You knew dive teams got good missions. They always got good missions because you were like, they were always fit. They always ran. They always had very cardiovascular fit. So you were like, I want to be like that. You know, they were always like walking around with their shirts off because they were always they just did tons of pool PT and water PT. They're always jacked. You were like, they're so jacked and fast. I love it.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of gave them a pass. They had like slightly longer hair than everybody, and they could haze you more in SF because there was an added layer of hazing. If you couldn't be a diver, they were the only team authorized to kind of get rid of a person at whim because like there's just not going to be a diver. They always had the smallest teams because not many people could pass it. You wanted to be part of that club within the club. You're like, that's a better club in the club.
It's kind of funny because like it's just like layers of like I want to be that much cooler, you know?
Yeah.
And like this translates to anything for men, right? We just want to have that next thing to just be like that much more. It doesn't matter if it's sports or the military or business, right?
100%.
Oh, I made this much in revenue this year. I want to make the next tier, right? It's kind of the game we play. But yeah, it's hilarious because like from an outsider's perspective looking in, right? I was never in that community, never earned the right to be amongst that. You know, all of it's cool, right? From like the regular Army perspective. And then it's funny to just watch or hear it from a guy like you who's been through so many insane things, also just talk like in awe of like the next thing, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like we're all little boys at heart. It's just like we're all just kids. So
I watched my sons build Lego towers, and they're like, "Well, I'll build one taller."
Yeah,
and they keep doing that, and I'm like, "That's us. We're just men that do that. We want the biggest Lego tower."
So what was you talked about like some close calls, and I don't necessarily want you to like go into all the war stories or whatever, but in part one, you mentioned you had some close calls and kind of realized like, okay, I'm not done yet.
Yeah.
What were some of those, and like maybe what were some of the maybe not new lessons, but more of like refocusing on kind of what you learned in Afghanistan that first time?
Yeah. So we had a trip where we were getting shot at again, and I remember because I was looking out. Remember the little windows on the RG? We had the water cans on the outside,
little rectangle ones.
Yeah, the little rectangle ones that were 8 inches thick of glass, and our water cans and gas cans were getting shot, and they were squirting. And I don't know if the vehicle was in op. I don't remember, but I know the gun was down, and I went up, and I pretty much opened the hatch, got up, and was standing up there during a firefight trying to fix it, and everybody was kind of yelling like, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, you're insane." I'm like, "This is the only way this is going to happen." This is the only way it's going to happen. So they were like shooting our bags on the side, and I could remember hitting them, and I got it up and running and like dove headfirst back into the hatch, and we got able to return fire. But every time something like that happens, after being shot in the head, at Restrepo and everybody saying those things, I was like, all right, is that strike two, or is it's still not there yet, And I've had several calls like that where we were out doing a patrol with a friend of mine who I'm actually going to go see him in a couple weeks. And we had certain people marking areas that were safe from IEDs and toe poppers and stuff like that. And he had to go to the bathroom. He's like, "Hey, mark me a spot." And the guy kind of like haphazardly marked him a spot, and I was providing security while he went to the bathroom in this area. And then he was doing his business kind of in a wadi, and I like look over and I could see like a wire, and it might have been 9 inches from where he just dropped his own landmine. And I like look at it and I look at him, and we're both standing like right next to it. He was pants down next to it. I was just standing up, and I said, first I got mad at the dude who marked the area, but then I was like, dude, do you have any idea if you had just decided to move to your left 6 to 9 inches, we would both not be here because of where you had to go to the bathroom, So we were both staring at that, and I was like, but different things I've been part of. I was on a hill when we were seeing you have to you have to take the cap pin off of a RPG head, otherwise it won't explode.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's just a really fast projectile at that point. Yeah. So there's been an instance where one was fired at us and I heard it, and I looked over my shoulder and did the whole cringe thing and slid down the hill, and it just stuck into the dirt within the back engine of it, still like shooting sparks. And you're like looking over at it. And I always give that as an example because people will be like, well, you smoked while you deployed. And I remember being like, does anybody have a cigarette after that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're just sitting there with dirt crumbling down your neck while this thing is stuck in the dirt right there.
So you're only here because it didn't operate.
Yeah. Because whoever fired it didn't take, there's a pin in a cap that you take off the nose of it.
You have to arm it,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. He just didn't. He just shot it without arming it. It just stuck in the dirt right there. And, stuff like that, and yeah, it's, I think about these things, and now every time I'm in a dangerous situation, I think, is this it? Is this my time? And it might be, it might not be, but I've come to grips with that I'm walking the purpose I'm supposed to be walking. I'm doing the best I can day by day, step by step, and I'm going to take life as it comes at me. And it was really illustrated. One of the big times that I take for granted, but me and the crew had to go into a courtyard, and I don't remember who was on the metal detector in the front, but we ended up counting like 21 IEDs going into this courtyard. And
jeez.
Yeah, we were kind of lockstep and weaving it, and we had gone in a narrow pass, and then it spread out into a courtyard, and they found so many of them in there, so we all had to stop where we were and kind of like foot slide slowly. Nobody got hit, and I remember thinking, like, how many did we find? 21, 22? And that was the last time I can remember being like super scared. I was like, man, how did we even make it in here? But then kind of giving it up to the universe and power that be, that like, okay, if this is going to happen, it's going to happen. If it's not, it's not. We'll see,
What did your wife ever express, like, I don't want you to go again type of thing? I mean, what was that like for her? And, because she's basically known you for the bulk of your career, and you guys have been married for most of it.
Yeah.
You've obviously been through quite a bit after getting married. So like, just from her point of view, did she ever have any of those moments, or were there areas where you thought maybe we need to hang it up? Or
yeah, so, and she's been a big proponent of this. It's funny that you say we've been together so long, because she'll always remind me here and there, but twice a year she'll say, I knew you before you were in special operations. I knew you when you were just a paratrooper with a high and tight. So don't forget that. Okay. Okay. She'll humble me quick. But the last time I wanted to go to Afghanistan, and I fought tooth and nail after the warrant course to get to a team that was going back, because I knew it was ending. I knew it was coming winding down, and I tried and tried. And there have been several times where I was on the docket to go for one job or another, and it had been back several times, but I don't know. I was always searching for something that would live up to the Restrepo thing. I had been searching for it again, and finally my wife was like, she's like, you need to stop. Like, it's happened. And you need to that's where I was talking about, you need to let life come at you the way it should, because if you seek it out, you're not going to like the result. If you trying
to force it.
Yeah, trying to force an outcome.
So tell me more about what you mean by, like, were you looking for the high again, or what was the?
I guess, yeah. That's what you want.
The
You
glory,
can never get
or the like the what? What
yeah,
were
I mean, just I think it's the high again. It's that validation of being in that kind of thickness.
you think you were struggling with your identity a little bit?
Yeah. When you fought early on and that heavy, and then it kind of comes to a lull. And I did a lot of things with SOF, and I loved being in SOF, and I deployed to the Middle East with SOF, and I had a great time, served with the best men I know. And you continue. I mean, I guess it's just like being an addict of anything else. You just want more and more of it, And it didn't really hit home for me until I got they started doing wearables for SOF, these like whoops and stuff like that.
And the Aura rings and stuff. Yeah.
To track like cortisol and serotonin and all this stuff. They have all the different things.
Yeah.
And I started going into the doctors and being like, hey, like this is happening to me, your operator syndrome type stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, well, we're gonna take several measurements and readings. I was wearing all kinds of different things. And they were like, we want you to do a myriad of things that you would do operational. I said, all right. So I tried to get on some jumps. I tried to do some dives. I tried to do everything I could. I was doing door breaches, fast ropes. I was like, all right, I'm going to do everything. And the lady kind of looked at me and she's like, when they had my data and they had to print it off, and they didn't have a big printer, so they had to print it off in several sheets and like tape it together. And she like held it up and she's like,
you had a horse blanket of data.
of just like data on these different points. And she's like, you don't really get too excited. You have a really good HRV. You have a really low resting heart rate. The only time you got excited, and she pointed out like 2 or 3 Saturday mornings, and she's like, what is that? And I was like, that's a 7-year-old wrestling tournament. I'm at a kids wrestling.
When your son is wrestling.
Yeah, I'm at a kids wrestling tournament right there. She's like, well, what'd you do here? And I said, oh, that's a halo jump at like 12,000 feet. She's like, well, what's that? And I said, that's a night navigational dive. But my peaks of anything were only during kid time,
Wow.
So I guess you're trying to find those peaks again. You're trying to find anything that'll excite you. And I was just hanging out with a good friend of mine who recently retired. He now cuts trees. He was cutting a tree for me, and we were talking. And he said, "Man," I said, "When did you know it was time, brother?" And he said, it had become Groundhog's Day, and if you buy a case of beer every time you do something for the first time. When you start realizing you haven't bought a case of beer in like 5 years, because the only time I have to buy one now is if there's a new piece of equipment that I've never seen, which that happens frequently because we're coming out with good stuff. But hey, we're going to do this kind of a thing or this kind of a thing. It's like, all right. And I took that to heart. I really did. I was like, man, he's right. When you start not being excited about the mission anymore, and you're like, maybe I'm more of a liability than an asset, to them. So we've had these talks, and she's like, maybe it's time to hang it up. I recently had some medical things going on with, I was working with Hunter 7 and the cancer stuff. So we've had some things going on with that. And she's been brought to my attention, like, hey, we need to think about the future now. And that's what really got me going on that path. But yeah, I was chasing the high. You're chasing that high. Just like I said with the crack comment, like you want that so much because you never feel more alive until you're not. But you never feel more alive than a good fight. And
yeah, I mean, I didn't have anything to the level of intensity you've experienced, but I mean, that my first firefight is seared in my brain. Like I can remember every detail.
Yeah. And you become
Who
conditioned
was where,
to
how
it.
it happened, the feeling I had, all of it.
And no matter how bad it was,
especially to a young man, that's hard to.
And you still smile afterwards.
Oh yeah, we were hooting and hollering. I felt like I was king of the world afterwards.
You still smile. It's still the greatest feeling ever. Right. And I don't think people that haven't experienced can't understand it.
So obviously your wife has been extremely supportive through all this, and you had, how long into your career did you have each of your kids? Because I know you have 3 now.
Yeah, we had them late. We have a 9, 7, and a 3-year-old. We had them pretty late on. So I was like 31 when we had our first. Okay. And so I had already been in SOF for like 7 years or so, 6 years. Okay. And we had been doing things on and off, on missions and stuff on and off. And she had gone to law school and stuff. And
at Harvard, no big deal.
At Harvard, yeah. Oh, I can go into stories about that. I went up and visited her, and I was like, these are not my people. We are very disconnected. Yeah. In our viewpoints.
I wonder what all her friends thought about. Oh, I'm married to a Green Beret or dating a Green Beret or whatever. They're like, a what?
Exactly, dude. They right off the bat, they were not happy about it, and I went up for a house party one time that she was holding, and, I guess the entire class, that law school class, came out to meet me and some other friends. I actually invited several friends from Restrepo to come that were living in the area,
Yeah.
and, I remember thinking, like, "This is insane," because they all just stood in the kitchen, mostly the females, just asking us questions about our lives, and they're
Mhm.
like, "Why you guys fit, and why do you have so many
It's like a
tattoos?"
spectacle to
Yeah,
them.
we were
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
circus freaks to them, and
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious. And I remember I have this vaguely drunk image of my wife sitting on a stool just smiling at me because she could tell I was eating it up. I'm like, yeah, we do this and we do that, and I was talking to one guy that she was in class with, and I was like, hey, so what are you trying to do? And he's like, be president. I was like, oh, there's no in between, huh? You're not gonna.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna be president of the United States. I was like, sick, dude. That's well, good luck.
Yeah. You don't meet very many people
No.
who are like that. Yeah.
No, but funny story on that party got loud, right? So then a cop shows up. It's the middle of winter. A cop shows up in Somerville, Massachusetts, and he knocks on the door, and I'm 3 sheets to the wind hammered. And my wife's like, shh, 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 I gotta answer the door. What's up? Hey, we got a noise complaint. And I'm like looking over her shoulder being obnoxious, and he looks at me and goes, hey, were you stationed at Bragg? And I'm like, yeah, I was. He's like, oh man, I just retired from like so and so. He's like, we hung out at X, Y, and Z bar at Bragg. He'd been in the army like 3 months prior. Like, what's up, dude? So he came in. Like a weird world. Like, what are you doing here? He's like, oh,
Yeah.
I live in Southie. I'm just, walking a beat. I'm like, cool, brother.
So you got off the hook.
Yeah, we got
Yeah.
off the hook, and
See,
that was,
relationship building is a superpower.
yeah, it really is. And it's funny because I was mocking the Harvard kids the first time I went there. We were in Harvard Square, and I bought a pipe just to be an ass,
Yeah.
and like a Burberry scarf. So I was like
Yeah.
sitting on the bench with my pipe, not able to keep it lit. Like,
Yeah.
I can fit in here. Just wait. I can't.
No.
No.
I don't think I could fit in either.
Not at all.
I went to college. I don't think I could fit in there.
Yeah. But
Oh man. What are some of the, as you're ending your career now, you're getting ready to retire pretty soon here. What are some of those lessons that you learned through the SOF experience that you think are, obviously they're applied from a tactical point of view for doing what you do there, but you think that are pretty universal, where you're like, man, I'm really glad I learned this, and you see that translating outside of the Army? What are some of those things that you've, whether it's through firefights or just lessons or training or whatever, some of those things that maybe the average guy listening to this could like learn from that experience in a way?
yeah, I mean, it's hard to articulate because I do so many things that I don't realize what's ingrained and what I do naturally. My
Mm.
wife would be able to articulate it better based on like, well, you learned that in the Army. Well, did I, or just I do that naturally? But
Right.
I
Well,
do
either way, what are some of those things
yeah,
that,
yeah. Everything from the way I plan our family, and like the way we sit down and communicate, like in a team room, we have open communications. I don't know if other soft units are like this, but we have like call out sessions and gripe sessions. Like, hey,
Mm.
you didn't do this right, and like you're messing up, or you didn't do this, and it'll get heated.
Mm.
And dudes will drink a beer afterwards and be like, thanks for telling me that. Like, hey, you help me out if I can fix it.
Yeah.
So I've taken that into our personal life, whether I'm coaching with other guys in the wrestling room or with the family thing. Like, we don't have any distractions. They don't watch. We don't do any tablets or anything like that. But we don't do TV time during the week. But we sit down and we go over like the week's events. And my wife like gets mad about it because if we have shopping to do, I plan a route. I'm like, I want minimal left turns, all right turns, and I do like by a timeline. Well, that might be excessive, but
Maybe just a little, bro.
a little, yeah. And I'm like, hey, like I just don't like left turns in Destin traffic during spring break. So we're gonna do five rights, 1 left, 5 rights home. I do stuff like that. But the biggest thing I've taken is leadership. I had a guy tell me one time, he actually wrote this about me in a letter of rec, and I hold him in the highest regard. He is a former group commander, and he wrote on a letter of rec that he would allow me to lead his children into combat.
Mm.
And nothing had ever hit me harder than that. And even when my wife read it, she's like, wow, that's glowing. And I
Yeah.
said, I can't believe that, man. Is that lip service? But it's because that same commander, one time, I was in a gun truck and I was scanning something, and
This is like the 06 commander. the
no,
current-
this was an SF commander.
That's what I mean. But you said your group commander or your team?
Yeah, 06 commander. I'm sorry. Yeah,
sorry.
I was going with year. not
Yeah.
rank.
Yeah. So he's the group
Yeah,
commander.
the group commander was the group
colonel.
commander. He
Yeah.
said it. And years prior, he was I think in '04, and we had a huge push in Afghanistan, and we knew he was out there with us, and something was happening. I don't remember how this went down, but my door, I got banged on, and my gun truck door swung open, and he looked up at me and he was like, "Come on, Kyle, we got to clear this poppy field." And I like looked out, and it was just me and him, and I was like, "Just you and me, sir?" He said, "Yeah, let's go." And there we are, high stepping through a poppy field. I'm like, really hope I don't blow myself up. But he was in front of me, and he was a company commander. And dudes ended up coming on either flank to help us out, but I was like, I'd follow him anywhere. And this is how it's translating over to my civilian world, my coaching and stuff, and my philosophies. It's like these leaders, whether you're a leader in the household with just a wife and kids, a business leader, a corporate leader, the do as I say, not as I do thing. You can never have, in our world in SOF, a leader will get nowhere with lip service.
Yeah.
Like, hey, go do this, you know? Everything is teach, coach, mentor, you know, and it's almost, you have to take everything like teaching your son how to ride a bike or daughter. You know, first you hold it, then it slowly, you start to let go more and more and more, training wheels until, you know what I'm saying? But if you're not out there doing it, it can't be done through, and society has gotten so big into like, here's a PowerPoint. Now you know it, right? You know, I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that. As I look for my purpose on the outside, I'm like, if you wanted me to teach you to be a sniper and I sent you a PowerPoint, do you think you would be an awesome shooter by the end of my 30 slider? Come on, man. You know? So what I gathered from SOF mostly is and being a leader, but being a leader without saying anything, but showing everything. It's who would you follow? What do they do? You know, a dude being like, all right, you guys go clear that, you know, IED laden terrorist, or go into this rigged door.
Well, you gave an example back from your Restrepo experience, all those bigwigs coming in and they wouldn't walk up.
They wouldn't walk up. The walk was too hard, or they didn't have enough time because their bird was coming in an hour and it's a 2-hour walk anyway. And I'm like, all right, man, well, here we are, you know. But even at Restrepo, like they were the same way. They were right with us all the time. And it translated to SOF because I've seen dudes' careers just go up in flames in special operations when, you know, all right, guys, we have this. What I mean by that is you guys have this. Or, hey, this is the standard. I'm not going to do this. You guys are expected to pass the standard, you know? And that is where you will just completely implode as a leader, and you will not produce a good team, and you won't produce a good product. There'll be no cohesion, you know? And dudes grumble about that because I've been on both sides of it. I've been a junior guy all the way up to a senior guy into a warrant where I'm no longer in the bro chat, the like enlisted bro chat.
I get it.
That's the worst thing ever.
I'm an officer. I've never been in the bro chat.
Yeah, the bro chat's the coolest thing ever. And it used to drive me nuts when they would all like giggle because they threw out a meme or a GIF, but I couldn't see it. I was like, oh.
Yep.
I really want to know
it's
how
lonely
funny.
at the top, bro.
Yeah. I hated it. But you know, being the warrant has been super beneficial because I was the go-between between both sides. So it would be like, hey, I got pulled in both directions, being like, you need to correct him on this. Well, you need to tell them that they're doing this. And I would take that about 2 or 3 times before. I'm like, all right, sit down. Like, this is not happening. Like mafia, sit down. We gotta hash this out, you know?
Right.
But one of my favorite things to do also is what we talked about at lunch is I love, and I didn't think anybody picked up on it until this last deployment, but I love letting guys come to their own conclusion. So my dudes they'll have a knockdown, drag out fight about a TTP, tactic, technique, or procedure, or a standard operating procedure, or something that we do, whether it be a mag change or how we plan or how we load out a pallet.
Right.
And they'll fight and fight. And then they'll turn to me and they'll be like, well, what do you think, Chief? How has it been done in the past? So what I love to do is I'll be like, I've seen this way. I've seen this way. I know this way to work. This is the doctrinal way. What do you guys think? And I love hearing them hash it out and coming to the conclusion, like, that is a good idea. Oh, we should do it this way. And that's been most rewarding to me. And I do that with my children and the kids that I coach. I love doing that. So being able to take that and apply it into the real world has been super fulfilling. Because, like, people know the answer. They know the answer.
Yeah.
A lot of times, whether it's fear, they just don't want to say the answer out loud. You know, getting up early. You know what you have to do.
Yeah.
You know what you have to do. It sucks. I get it.
Right.
It sucks.
Oh yeah.
But you know what you have to
Yep.
do. Like, don't act like you don't know.
Can I share a quick little personal
Yeah,
story? I think
please.
you'll love this, right? So I deployed right away as a second lieutenant, got promoted to first lieutenant on deployment, came back, took a platoon. My platoon sergeant had done 6 regular Army deployments by this point.
Yo.
This is 2013. Okay, pretty seasoned dude. He was like, I love this man. If he called me up and needed help with anything, whatever it is, I would help him to this day. But we had a good thing going. And we were it was our first like huge field exercise with like the whole battalion and stuff. We were doing one platoon versus the other platoon, like, because it's a doctrinal thing. You have to defend your howitzers, right, against being overrun type of deal. And if you don't have infantry support, it's kind of a hard task actually to do. So, because you're not equipped for that, you don't have tow missiles and stuff, right? You don't have what a infantry company has. So anyway, we were just going through that to just get better at it. And I'm a very hands-on guy. I want to be in doing it, right? Which I think you and I are pretty aligned on. Like, we just want to go, right?
Yeah.
Do things. And so in the first round of this exercise, I was way too into the weeds, right? I'm like trying to direct the firefight and all that kind of stuff and everything, and it didn't go very well, to put it lightly. And afterwards, I was like, "Smoke, man, why don't you like pull my ass back and like tell me to get back on the radio or whatever?" He's like, "Sir, I knew if I let you fail this one time, you will never make this mistake again." Dude, we're going on like 15 years since this conversation now. What is it? 13, 12 years? I'm bad at math. Whatever. 12 years since this conversation. It's etched in my brain, man. I've applied that to everything I've done in my life. So that it's very around what you're talking about. Because in the same way, I learned the same thing. But it is, when you know the answer, you want to help the other person as fast as possible. And you want to just explain it to them. But sometimes the best answer really is to just let them stumble a little bit and then explain to them why, right? And I needed that. I never messed it up again, man. We redid the next iteration, and it was like I was calling in all the stuff and everything, and it was just like flawless. And I was like, okay,
That's
lesson learned.
No, that's a perfect example.
And that's again too why, like, we were talking about this at lunch too, about how you wanted to give as much credit to all the people that made you who you are, right? It's not Kyle's awesome. It's you're the product of all these great leaders. The same thing. Like, I had a Darvin Poulet pouring into me as a young lieutenant, a young man, that lesson that I've applied throughout all of my life. And I mean, I can't ever repay the value that one lesson has taught me, I think that's where, I don't know if people get that purely from a civilian experience. I think it's a lot harder to captivate that. There's something about the military that cultivates some of those tougher lessons like that.
For sure.
I would imagine you have a lot more than I do from a soft experience, but I agree with you that might be one of the most valuable lessons all men can learn, because at some point you're going to have the answer for someone, and it's understanding how to kind of meet that other person where they are and kind of like lead them to the solution.
100%.
Because
no, brother, no. I was gonna get right to
I
that.
just know you love that one because you were an NCO at one point too.
It's great, yeah.
You would have done the same thing.
Yep, I see. Well, and I've done it as a warrant. I've let especially new captains. I'm like, all right,
oh yeah,
let's watch this. Let's see. Like, you can't tow that vehicle with that vehicle down that grade. But I'm just gonna wait and see.
Yeah.
And I take that into, that's another big lesson I've taken into, especially fatherhood, because I think this is the most common. If you have a good marriage, this should be the most common fight you have. Is like, all right, my sons need to get this thing off the top shelf.
How hard to push them?
Yeah, they're gonna build this like Home Alone type thing to climb up, and your wife's gonna be like, "Whoa, you're gonna fall." I'm like, "Wait, let's see how this works out."
Yeah,
because I want them to know that this is not a feasible plan, Or I made this comment to her. When I was really young, I touched a cookie sheet, and she was always like, "Oh, don't touch it, don't touch it." And I was like, "Listen, I get it, it's gonna suck, but if he puts a pinky on that cookie sheet one time, he will never do it again. Promise you." Those what you're talking about. And I think of those things, and you have to, as a leader, you have to gauge where that is, where that point is. And you're right about resiliency. So like, my main goal, what I wanted to know years ago, was, you talk to a lot of guys in SOF, whether it be really good SEALs or wherever, they typically come from a specific stereotypical background. They do.
Yeah.
You very rarely are silver spoons dropped everywhere in SOF. It's just not a thing.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do was like, all right, how do you build that resiliency, that perseverance, and that grit without the trauma? that comes along with it
Mhm.
to become this person. And I've been searching for that and looking for that will be my life's goal at the end, is be like, how can you build the men that soft creates, that all
Yeah.
this arduous crap we go through without inducing the trauma that comes along with it.
Right.
And I feel like that's a step towards it. Like, hey, you have to be the gauge of like, is this a lesson is this a hard lesson I'm gonna let my son or my student learn, or am I gonna stop them right beforehand? And I always say, like, the point is the injury. Like, where are they gonna really injure themselves? Is when I'll rein them back.
Right.
Yeah.
My first battalion commander, or sorry, second battalion commander, he called them training scars.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as a lieutenant, you should get a lot of training scars to where they hurt enough that you remember to never do that again.
Yeah.
But they don't actually maim you, right? I think I have a lot of training scars.
Yeah. We all do,
I'm
brother.
very grateful for them. But yeah, there's no shortcut to some of this stuff, and with our kids. But so I'm just a girl dad. I don't have, I just have one daughter. That's it. We're at the point now where my wife actually has to be the tougher one. But don't help her out with that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you do that now? And I trust her on that for sure, because my tendency with there's something about daughters, man. They just tug on your heartstring, and the tough soldier leader of men thing.
Oh yeah,
gets hijacked pretty quickly by the 9-year-old with the eyes.
100.
Dad, can you make my dinner for me? Sure, sweetie. No, she knows how to do it. So it's kind of funny how that's changed too, where my wife is the tougher one now.
Oh yeah.
In terms of like letting her figure it out type of deal. Have you experienced that as well?
Yeah, that's that. And we talked on the phone, like, my daughter was unplanned, and I was not. I was like, I got my 2 boys, or maybe my warriors.
Yeah.
There was a second where
you
I
were
was
just thinking boy dad.
Yeah, I was ready to be a boy dad, and I wasn't very happy because we just didn't plan it. It was at a bad time, and my wife was like, this is gonna be a blessing, and I believed her. And my father gave me a good talk. He's like, hey, like, just wait. And he's like, I can't explain it, but you'll understand. And sure enough, like, they're right. Wives are tougher on daughters, and husbands are tougher on their sons. And now my sons will come in, get covered in dirt. They've got like a jar of tadpoles. They smell, I'm like, you asses. But my daughter can do no wrong. And I'm like, biggest blessing in my life. I love her. And my wife's the same way. She's like, no, she's got this. I'm like, Dad will just help you out over here.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about it.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah. And I'm like, you guys take the trash out. Trying to toughen them up. I'm like,
yeah.
It's got to be a balance, but for sure, I'm a girl dad at heart. I love her. She's awesome.
Have you experienced where, because this is something I think every man has to learn too, because at some point, somewhere along the line, you're going to develop enough confidence or capability to where you're pretty good at something, right? Obviously, with the Green Beret background, you're frequently working with people who aren't as good as you, right?
Mm-hmm.
At what point did it kind of click for you that the fastest way to actually train someone is to lead with that humility? Because for me, I definitely learned that far later than I wish I would have, right? I wish I would have learned earlier on that I don't need to like beat my chest and like kind of the spite engine that you keep talking about.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need to do that anymore. I can kind of like connect on the human level first, and then hit them with the experience when it's required type of deal.
Yeah.
When did you learn that? Because that's something I've found pretty common amongst guys with your background, is they excel at setting aside all of your own personal success or whatever and connecting with someone to like help them along the stumbling block they're getting around.
Yeah, I mean, every situation is different, and what happens is you come in and you think you're the best man for the job, and you're like, hey, I'm gonna help plan this mission or do X, Y, Z, and somebody makes a fool out of you. It happens in our job a lot. We get called out. Like, sheer ridicule is the best motivator in our job. So I think you have to be embarrassed once. And I'm trying to remember, I was talking on my ass about something that I really didn't know about. And I got called out in front of a lot of people. And I was like, oh yeah. And I had to just eat my words and be like, yeah, I had no idea I think it was an AAR about capabilities or something about our mission set. Or it was something, sustains and improves. And I said, and they're like, that doesn't even apply, like, don't make an ass of yourself. Don't speak just to speak. And I was like, yeah, they're right. And throughout, I've taken that. And then I had a warrant, George Valdez, and he's a very good friend of mine. And he used to take me aside and be like, hey, the wise man listens. far more than he speaks.
Mm.
And he always used to say, you have 2 ears. I'm a louder guy and an opinionated guy. And he'd be like, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Just take in what you get. He's like, once
From the
you,
book of James.
yeah,
Actually.
100%. And he's like, once you read the room and you know how to read it, your cues are going to be as clear as day to speak your mind. But right now you're not seeing the cues. And
I had to learn that lesson.
yeah, whether it would happen with when we were doing joint stuff with the SEALs, or we would do joint stuff with the SAS, the SBS, the Brits, and I would look like an ass. And I'd get this like weird eyebrow up look. And I was like, oh, as a junior dude. So I learned how to temper myself and take in everything and use a lot of good, effective communication. Like, okay, how would you do this? Not be so combative, but I'm like, okay, that's a good perspective. What do you think about doing this? Everything is evolving. There's no shut door, especially in the military, in a mission, and nothing. There's no door that just shuts. It can always evolve. And you have to ask yourself this, right? So when we're doing CQB, I left the CRIF for a good amount of time, went to a white side ODA, line ODA, and then came back, and TTPs had changed drastically. And I said, what happened to this? What happened to that? The first time I ran with the boys again after coming back, ran in the house, I looked ate up. Like I didn't know what to do. And I was like, man, I look ridiculous. A lot of the things had changed. So there I have a guy who's been in the company in an SF for 2.5, 3 years, teaching me the new way to do it because I look stupid.
Yeah.
But I want to be an integral cog in that wheel that's clearing these objectives. So I had to just eat my words, humility, and be like, hey, young buck, like, how do we do this kind of door? How do we take this? I'll never forget. We hit a place that had like those heavy freezer doors that like automatically they just swing and then they close and they have that plastic seal. And I like hit it, did something, and it swung back and just knocked me down. There I am, Chief, like old Chief on the ground, like, oh, I didn't realize it swung back. Looking stupid.
Got taken out by the door.
By a freezer door.
Yeah.
Just looking dumb. And they're laughing at me, and I've messed calls up, my calls as a leader. And I'm like, oh, that sucks. But you have to understand, and the thick skin and soft, everybody says when you go to soft, have thick skin because they're going to rib you.
Yeah.
It's bad. I've known teams that will collectively pay for a billboard to shame somebody, like on the way to work.
Oh, geez.
Oh, God. There's always these sniper photographers that'll be on the team. And if you're like sitting in an unflattering way or eating something, they'll snap pictures, and on the group chats, there they come. You with like salsa on your face and your gut sticking out. You're like, oh, who got this? If we do a physical event, they will highlight you in red and it's marked up.
Yeah.
You are shown for the world to see. And you'll get texts from old guys because it'll go on in the old timers chats and the alumni chats. And you're like, what happened? Why are you dead last in this? So it's having that humility and knowing like, hey, there are better people. I can learn from everybody. Everybody can teach me something. I never take that for granted. Everybody.
What you just said there, everybody can teach you something. That is a lesson that I've really been learning the past couple of years, especially stepping out and to start my own business and things like that. And this is going to dovetail into my final question to you on this. Is it's really an identity question, but it's more of recognizing that, okay, I am these things. These are where I have skills and strengths in. I don't like just you and me, right? I'm never going to outshoot you, outmaneuver you. Anything that has to do with CQB or scuba or whatever, you're going to crush me every single time. There's probably a set of skills that I have that you don't have, right? And so instead of being threatened by you, it's more of like, how can I learn from you what I need to learn? What can you learn from me? Where can we find mutual value? That lesson has been just driven into me over the past couple of years so heavily. And I can't believe I ever played that game of like, well, I'm better than them because of this, or I'm this branch, you're that branch, like all that stupid. It's such a stupid mentality. And I can't believe I ever like subscribed to it. But for me, the reason I think that I couldn't learn that lesson sooner was it came down to my identity. I was still tying all of my value into how good I was at something or what I could accomplish, almost that spite engine that you've described it as. I had a lot of that in my own life. What are your thoughts on that? Like, how have you coped with through nearing the end of your career and kind of, hanging up this exciting lifestyle and all that kind of thing, that most people look up to? How have you managed to prepare for that transition or maybe had some setbacks in that? Because I think deep down, a lot of these things for most men today comes down to a lack of their own personal identity and of knowing who they are regardless of what appears on the outside, so to speak?
Yeah, for sure.
So I know
No,
that's a pretty deep question.
it
but
is. It's
I'd love to kind of pick your brain on that because I think a lot of guys might be surprised to hear that you struggle with things like imposter syndrome or
yeah, big
things of that
time.
nature.
I mean, I've always said that I didn't want the Army to define me as a man, and it ended up doing it anyway.
Mm.
And there's nothing I can do about it. I started coaching little kids when my sons wanted to get into wrestling. They'd seen some VHSs of me wrestle, and I said, "Hey, it's a passion of mine. I love the sport. It made me really tough. It made me who I am." They wanted to get into it, and I got into it with them, and we started doing it. They quit a couple times. They came back to it, and slowly but surely, they started to fall in love with it like I did, and they do love it. And the humility in who I am is that I would go around to these different tournaments, and nobody knew who I was, and nobody gave me the time of day. And I wanted to be like, this guy worked for Allstate, and this dude, he does whatever. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, you have no idea what my life is like. And I'll never forget this guy. He was like, I didn't see it at the last tournament or whatever. And I said, yeah, I was, I had an emergency deployment at the last minute. And he's like, yeah, he's a diesel mechanic. He's like, I know it's like I have to miss stuff sometimes too. And I was like, no, it's not the same. No, I was really upset. So I've created, I'm still struggling with it. I've created this identity to where like, you're not me and you're not my people. And I've drawn my own imaginary line in the sand, especially with like corporate and civilian America. And I'm trying to get over it right now where I'm like, it's like animals when they sniff each other. I'm like, you're not me. Who are you? I do well with my own people that understand me. I have 2 civilian coaches that coach with me. They both are good friends. And I've asked them one time because I can be taken the wrong way in a blunt way that works for my work, but doesn't work for other things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey guys, am I an asshole? And they're like, who's asking? I'm like, I'm asking. They're like, yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, what? And they're like, well, you asked. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I said,
Yeah.
They're like, but we know you, and it goes to a thing.
Well, thank God we got some good friends like that.
Yeah. I love them. They would be ashamed of me saying what I think. Cause I love them to death, but they told me I'm a straight asshole, but I don't mean to be. It's just that I'm very blunt and forthright with everything I think and believe, and I'm convicted in it. And I do struggle because I got into recently at a wrestling tournament, I got into not a shouting match. I kind of gave somebody a lecture because like I said earlier, I saw hypocrisy at its finest.
Sure.
And it drove me nuts. And I went on this huge rant. It was such a big rant that the stadium stopped listening to anything that was going on and just eyes were on me. And I got a lot of bad looks about it. They're like, well, he's, a cheerful person. Like, what's his problem? But a lot of the moms applauded it. Yeah. And I was like, you need to stop this and stop being a man that you don't want to be. But again, that's where I'm drawing the line. Like, how can I deliver myself better to the outside world? Because we're abrasive.
Yeah.
We're rough around the edges, and that's who I am. And a lot of times the question, are you an introvert or extrovert, is hilarious to me because I'm like, I am an extrovert at work with the people I love and the people I like to talk about and rant with. But the minute I'm walking around downtown Nashville, I'm the biggest scaredy cat because I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want you to talk to me. I don't want you to even look at me. Don't notice me because it weirds me out because we don't speak the same language. Yeah. You're going to start talking. And, I went to a parent-teacher meet and greet one time. My kids went to Montessori school for a long time, and it was a real high-end parents.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
in the
I know what you mean.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's in the neighborhood where the Truman Show was filmed.
Okay.
The 30A, like,
okay.
oh
yeah.
And this dude's like, oh, like, how's the yacht? Like, really good. And the guy's like, did you upgrade your like private jet? They were talking, and I'm standing there in like Chuck Taylors. They all have the same like pastel colored shorts, boat shoes, like a polo. And I was standing there in like a t-shirt and Chuck Taylors. And they're like, you're like the military guy. I said, yeah. And they're like, they tell me you're like a special forces guy, like a Green Beret. And I was like, yeah. And I had this point was fed up with their conversation leading around the circle to me. And they're like, that's pretty elite, right? As I'm drinking like my Michelob Ultra or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Like very bluntly, like, So like, what's a typical day for you? I said, I jumped out of an airplane today at 18,000 feet. And it was silent for 10 or 15 seconds. So Rick, how's the new ride? How's the new Jaguar or whatever? They just bypassed me. And that's when I started developing this unnecessary disdain for the division between our trains of thought and our skills. And I'm trying to overcome that because there's a lot of times I don't want to talk to people that can't relate to me. It drives me nuts. And I have a lot of friends who were in the corporate world, and they like to hang out with operators and stuff, and they like it. And I like hanging out with them, and they understand that I'm a different breed,
Right.
and they get that. But it's the person that doesn't know or doesn't want to acknowledge that and not saying, "Hey, you're awesome." But it's like, man, I don't know what you're talking about, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel really embarrassed when they start talking things, and I'm
Mm.
lost in the sauce. I'm behind like Googling stuff, like I don't
Right.
know what they're talking about, you know. So I'm definitely struggling with that. And as far as humility goes, you know, like I started coaching my sons, and then I was kind of hired by Winning Mindset. I wasn't really hired. They offered me their training package and stuff because I had gained this reputation. I used to take my sons off to the side, and early on, I realized like, okay, there are certain things I can't coach them in, especially your own kids. You could tell them something the same
Yep.
day every day for 3 months, and the minute somebody else says it, I'm like, dude, well, how come you didn't show me this? I'm like, dude, I've been showing you
I
that for
know. I
months.
know.
You know, so I was like, that was my huge dose of humility. I was like, all right, I need other people. So I would search out other people and be
Mm.
like, this dude is better suited to teach you this. This dude is better suited to teach you this, you know? Then I started being sought after for mindset coaching
Mm.
on kids because I would take them aside and I would go through an entire pre-match routine. I would say, I want you to remember how you felt before that your last big win, you know. And
Yeah.
I do things like that. And I was like, I need 21 good breaths. I would
It's
teach them
powerful.
box breathing, and I would
Yeah.
do this for kids. So other dads would be like, hey, I saw what you did for so and so. Can you do this for my kid before this
Mm.
finals match? And I got a lot of satisfaction out of doing it because I can get your mindset, because it's the same mindset I get in on the countdown to blow a door.
Right.
It's the same mindset I have to reset every room, because if I'm focused on 2 rooms deep, 1 room deep will kill me, you know? So I'm able to reset very fast. It's why I can lower my heart rate extremely
Mm.
fast. And I love putting that off on kids. And you'll see a lot of my kids, if I record them, not just mine, but the kids I coach, I'll see it, they'll, in between periods or during injury time, they'll be doing their box breathing, and they'll be getting their self ready and getting their mind right. They have all their clicks.
How old are they? Like these kids
The
typically?
youngest I have doing it is 7, 8 years old. I can
That's
get him into,
awesome.
yeah, I have a 7-year-old that does a specific footwork jump routine and his breathing routine. And he'll go down on his knees and do like a little meditation. I don't know what he's thinking about in there, you know, probably gummy bears, but it gets him in the right
Right.
state of
Yeah.
mind, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I really loved doing that. And
Yeah.
for me to swallow my pride and be like, all right, you have footwork problems and I am not getting through to you. I'm going to find the footwork person. Or
Mm.
you have this. And then having other dads reach out to me for something I was good at. And I was like, all right, well, we can do this. And
Yeah.
recently the biggest hit was a guy who runs a strength and conditioning program in my hometown. Said, hey, I want to toughen my son up and bring him over and see if wrestling is the right answer. I said, I'd love to have him. It's funny you should mention that, because I was just about to call you to see if my son would be good for your strength and conditioning program.
Mm.
So we're kind of trading services,
Yeah.
and they know a lot more. And I'm really working with his son, and I'm having a blast doing it. And he's doing great, you know.
Yeah.
And so you got to realize you don't know everything, and that's okay. You're never going to know everything.
Right.
And a lot of civilians, this is where people are really blown away. You're going to love this, George. People, civilians especially, like, so what are you going to do when you get out? And I have this long drawn out prefabbed answer. I'm like, I'm going to learn how to smoke meat. And like, what? I was like, I've spent 20 years learning very lethal, very specific skill set. And I couldn't smoke a Boston Bud if you held a gun to my head. And I would love to know how. I would love to know how to fix a cabinet or build a small engine.
Yeah.
I want to learn all the cool stuff that I never got a chance to learn. I'm so excited to like learn from people that have done stuff, tile work. I want to learn, you know, all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
that I just haven't had the time to do. And that's what really excites me. And I have that humility. It's funny. I'm looking for a program that'll just pay for me to take classes, but not like I don't want to be a carpenter, but I wouldn't mind 6 weeks of carpentry, you know, but I don't want to be a carpenter. And, you know, I don't want to be a mechanic, but
Yeah.
if you gave me 6 weeks of mechanic work, I'd be like, sick. I can change brake pads. That's what's up.
Yeah.
I don't know everything. In fact, I know very little, especially in the outside world.
Right. Yeah. I love that perspective. I think that's a really healthy way to look at it. You were kind of hitting home though on something. I want to double back on this one and get your thoughts on this, and maybe I'll fire back a few things too. But with I've seen this. I think I fell victim to it. I don't know if that's the right way to word it. I allowed myself to fall into this mental trap of kind of like us versus them, right? I'm a veteran, you're not. I'm a combat vet, you don't understand me. And I've talked, you know, I've had a lot of people sit in that seat who have been through some extremely traumatic things, and they kind of had the same deal. It's like, well, you couldn't possibly understand me because of what happened to me, and you didn't, you know, and your life's been so easy and everything. And man, that is such a trap that I think we fall into. And veterans, I think we've really done it to ourselves, like GWAT era people. We collectively kind of allowed this to happen to where like we're different now than the rest of Americans because we were GWAT vets, and it's not helpful because
It's
all it
not.
does is it puts it, like you said, it's an imaginary line in the sand we're drawing that just closes down that connection and opportunity to meet or learn from someone who isn't you. Um, and I definitely had that idea. Like I had that way of thinking when I got into the corporate world when I left active duty. And I've seen a lot of people struggle with that too. Of like, dude, I even had to hold the guy accountable to it because he got married like later, right? He had been divorced while he was in the military, and then post military got married to a woman, and so she never was with him on active duty type of thing. He's like, well, she could just never understand me, and I was like, bro, that's BS, man. Like, you think your wife can't at least comprehend like why you may struggle with certain things just because she wasn't married to you during your service? Like, that's a cop out, bro. Like,
Yeah.
um, and I see that play out a lot. So I'm just curious on if you've encountered that. Like, you described your own kind of personal journey there, but what do you think veterans, maybe especially Green Berets or other soft veterans, need to kind of mentally prepare themselves for to not fall into that trap? Because we're clearly getting to a point where I think we're this is a new generational problem we're going to have here, where we had, we're relatively close in age, 5+ years each way from our age bracket. You have a whole generation of people that basically just knew America at war
Mhm.
in some capacity, and we went and did it, and now there's like this whole new level of integration back into society that's kind of happening. I think if we don't handle this well as a group, right, uh, we're going to cause a lot of problems down the road that we're not even aware of yet, right? I think we're just going to start seeing,
I agree.
fallout from that. So maybe just on that thread, I'm sorry, it's like long-winded here, but
No,
it's a
so good.
pretty complex issue. But I'd love for you to share on that too, because I think a lot of guys might be surprised to hear how you're struggling with it or what your thoughts are. Because I think
Yeah.
people, they see the accolades, they see what you've been through, and they just immediately assume, oh, he's got everything figured out,
Yeah.
right?
No, not at all. And like my wife knows we've been close enough. She knows when I've had a weird day. She
Mm,
can see it the minute I walk in. She says she can feel it on me. She's kind of a hippie, so maybe she can. But she knows like if I've seen bad footage of stuff and it's bugging me, or if
mm,
I've something's come down the pipe that I'm not digging on. But I'm in that trap big time. And I'm still in the midst of it because I cringe when you're at like an event and they're like, "Hey, the service members, please stand up." I don't stand up. I
mm,
don't want you to clap for me. And I used to say like, "Don't buy me a cup of coffee. Like, don't pretend." But at this point, it's not like that. It's what I would really like, and I think the bridge, the gap needs to be bridged in finding a secondary purpose. The people that hit this roadblock of like the military was my purpose, and then they act like that, that's still their purpose, but it can't be anymore. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? You've run out of it. So you find the guys that are doing the best when they find an extended purpose. And sometimes it bleeds over in your military career. Sometimes it's an extension of it, whether it's a veterans organization or something.
right.
But you have to find something to devote your time to. The dudes that or gals that don't do anything and let themselves just kind of fester in their own
Mm,
thoughts, you've got to occupy your time. Everybody's told me that like take a few months, but if you just sit static, you're going to lose your mind.
yeah.
So bridging the gap for me looks like this. I'm reaching out to every successful civilian that I know, and all I'm saying is teach me
Mm,
what I need to know to be successful in your world. And like, if you want me to teach you something, I will. I don't have a whole lot to offer. I'm sorry. If you want to learn how to shoot better or something, but I'm not gonna. My intention is to kind of leave the military behind. A lot of people cling to it. I don't want to do so much with the military anymore, but I want knowledge and I want to be assimilated into the culture. And that's what I'm like trying to do.
yeah.
And I understand that I'm covered in tattoos and I look like I'm out on my fourth parole. And it is what it is. And I tend to sling the F bomb far more frequently than I should in polite company. I realize it when I'll like throw one out at a restaurant and I get
It'll wear off when you leave.
yeah, I hope so because
No, I mean, it's way easier for me to not do that now. But I throw my uniform back on for drill, and I'm like, "Whoa, where'd that guy come
yeah, it's
from?"
coming out.
Yeah.
It's belt fed F bombs
Yes.
just everywhere. And I'm like, oh, here it is again,
Yep.
And that's I get mad at myself because
Mm,
um I hear my kids like, hey, your language needs to match your personality and your goals. So like keep your language because they repeat stuff. But then I'll get a call from work and I'll go on the patio and I'm just ripping it. And
yeah.
I look back and my son's right there and he's looking at me like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
he heard no less than 46 F-bombs
Right.
of me just losing it. But no, I think purpose is how you do it. Cause I was that way. I was like, don't buy me that cup of coffee.
Mm.
I don't want any part of you. You're not my people. And I fall back into that sometimes. I'm getting better about it. I really, really am, especially with some of the people that I've met and some of the people that have taken their time. I had a chance to meet a hyper successful dude who was in the army and now is a successful entrepreneur. Actually, this last weekend, and I wanted to elaborate more, but he was busy, like most super entrepreneurs are.
Yeah.
But I wanted to tell him, if he ever hears it, like I have been beholden to Uncle Sam and a schedule for so long that I just want you to listen to me for a minute and help me be you. And I was gonna tell him, like, I just want to be you, man. Like, I know that you think what I've done is cool, but like you live a very peaceful and fulfilling life, and I'm looking for that after the
Mm.
roadblock of the military. You know,
Yeah.
it's like one of those things where the cement blocks are up, like on the end of a railroad track, and then the tracks don't
Right.
continue. I'm trying to find my continuation of railroad tracks,
Yeah.
and like any advice you got for me would be fantastic because I want to leave this in the rearview mirror. I know you think it's cool, and I know actors get paid $9 million to pretend to be me for an hour and a half. That's all good for them, but I want to leave it behind. Like I don't want part of it anymore. I want to find a much more peaceful existence with some chickens or whatever, you know?
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
That's how to bridge the gap, I think, is purpose. And that really came hold for me. It's like finding another purpose and one that you can be successful with. And I have to credit, Nick Lavery. I called him, he's a friend, and I called him probably like a year ago, I guess. And I had a conversation with him. I was in a supermarket parking lot. I don't know what he was doing. I think he was flying somewhere. He's busy.
Probably.
He's busy and important. And I said, hey man, like I'm about to get out, dude. Like I got a year and a half left or so, and I'm really just trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do, because you seem to be doing all right with it. I didn't know he was still in. And he's like, well, I'm still in, but I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And I said, that's cool. But he said, hey, man, he drilled down the purpose thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't take his advice fully because he said, you need to like take a few days and silence and darkness or something and like
Yeah.
really like go internal. And I was like, all right, well, I'm still on an ODA. So
Right.
like next week I'm doing a UBR and running the O course. So like I'll try, but throughout that year and I haven't spoken to him since, at least in person or on the phone. But his words echoed in my mind over and over again. Find your purpose, like
Mhm.
find what will fulfill you as much. And don't worry about the workload. Don't worry about what it could take. Don't worry about what
Right.
skills you have or don't have. Because that's what we do. We talk ourselves out of what we want to do because in soft, they say don't self-select yourself. So most people quit selections, whether it's Buds or SFAS or whatever, because
Because they
they
go ring the bell or
they
whatever,
think
right?
they're doing bad,
Yeah.
and they have no idea that they're not doing bad.
Yeah.
Don't self-select yourself. So he essentially said, don't self-select yourself for the true purpose you should have further in life after the
Mhm.
military. Find it and cling to it, and then everything else will come. You can develop it if you know that's what you should be doing. And I think a lot of veterans need to do that. Find what their purpose is.
And so, I mean, the guy who quite literally wrote the book on this, Sebastian Younger, wrote a follow-up book called Tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Probably one of the most underrated pieces of literature that's been produced
Yep.
in the last century. Highly recommend everyone go read it. But he talks about that. It's the reintegration of the warriors back into society, and the responsibilities on both sides.
Mhm.
And he highlights it all throughout history of where cultures did it well and where they didn't do it well. And I'm concerned, as just a person, as a man who loves this country, and I did have some time in uniform, and I've had plenty of time now as a civilian. I don't want that to be a stumbling block for our nation, right? For the people of America. This is not a political issue whatsoever, but I'm concerned that we're getting it wrong. And I think a lot of people have meant well, right? Like, oh, thank you for your service and stuff. And either way, we're just not having the conversation to the level it should. Like we're somehow acting like we're different human beings.
Mhm. We are.
And we're really not.
Mm.
We just did some different things, and there's so much we can learn from each other.
Big
And
time.
So I've really tried to check myself on that a lot too, and not, well, I don't have the pedigree you do from a military point of view, but even then, people are still just like, "Oh, wow, I could never." And I'm like, yeah, you probably could have actually. It's kind of just put one foot in front of the other.
100%.
We can all learn from each other, but sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and I did not believe that previously.
Mm.
I wanted nothing to do with anybody that had anything to say to me because I was like, you don't know anything about me. But that doesn't matter. they don't need to know anything about me, and I don't need to know anything about them. I know that everybody has something they can teach me,
Yeah.
and if they're open, I can teach them something. Like I said, I gave a friend some business advice with regards to actual Army planning, and I thought, this is ridiculous that I'm telling you this, and this is, there's no way this is going to work. And he took it and ran with it. He's like, wow, that's really good advice. And I was like,
Yeah.
I feel like you're lying to me. I feel like you're just making me feel better.
No.
That was stupid. But I was really fulfilled by that. But you're right, the gap is real. It's
Mhm.
real. And I think that's where dudes struggle and gals struggle
Yeah.
coming back, is that they don't let go.
Yeah.
You gotta let go. You can have it can be a part of you, but it doesn't have to define you, you know?
Yeah.
For sure.
On the identity piece, yeah, I think because it's not just military men. I think men in general are really struggling with their identity today. Um,
Big time.
and I do think the only solution for solving that is to it's like how we started part one, legacy. It's your destination.
Mhm.
Defining that and then finding your purpose in that journey. That's where your real identity is going to come from, because it's not a temporal thing. It's not a job. It's not a title. It's not a badge. It's the fruit of your life's work, right? And that no one can take that from you.
Yeah. No,
Um, and
no
it
doubt.
doesn't matter what your skills are, what your giftings are, what you're doing professionally. Maybe your career isn't your big legacy builder, right? That's a real possibility. Maybe you have the job that just pays the bills and it's not the thing you're most passionate about, but maybe you go coach wrestling, or maybe you do something else, and that's your real purpose, right? Like men need that. We need to be more action focused. I
Mhm.
think we're waiting for permission almost
Big time.
collectively. I say we as just like modern American men. And I found that when I have people push me, especially when I was like trying to really define my new path, I had people push me very hard, like, get uncomfortable,
Mhm.
go. You're not going to be good enough yet, right? You've never done this before. Of course, you're going to have imposter syndrome, right? You're stepping into something that you've never done. It's going to feel strange and uncomfortable. You need to go. And the more that I've done that for others too, I've just found that I don't think it's an accident that with men specifically, we will all have that initial fear or feeling like we're not good enough, no matter what your background is. 'Cause, I mean, we had this exact conversation at lunch, right?
Yeah.
So we're all gonna have that initial fear. And then the only way you actually find that real purpose that you can latch onto and be proud of and start to really build that independent identity,
Mhm.
regardless of like things, is just getting in motion. And I think we've convinced ourselves as a society. Sorry, stumbling on my words here. That's the other way around. It's do all the research, get all the facts, get all the data, make the perfect plan, and then start. It's like, well, you'll never get going.
100%. You know, it's funny. I gave a talk recently on getting out of your comfort zone, and midway through me writing the speech, I realized that I was a huge hypocrite,
Mm,
because I said this to a lot of people. I was like, you just got to get out of your comfort zone. People that want to be soft, people that want to do things. And I would say, look at me. I got out of my comfort zone. Instead of doing a 10-mile road march, I did a 15-mile road march in the rain. So I stayed within my comfort zone, just made it slightly more uncomfortable.
right.
And that came true for me. A lady helped me realize that about social media, because I hate social media and I hate talking on it and I hate my voice and I hate everything about making a video. And she's like, then are you really getting outside of your comfort zone? Like, you say you are, because you do
Mm,
something within the sphere of what your comfort zone is to slightly less comfortable in that bubble. And I said,
mm,
you're right. So then I had to eat this huge piece of humble pie, because what is my comfort zone, and getting out of my comfort zone, which is the civilian sector? Because for a long time, I think we self-select, and I would say, like, I would love to be an entrepreneur,
mm,
but I'm just a grunt. Like, there's no way that's for me. And then I would look at people and say, well, you know, they're an exception. You know, the Nick Lavery's are an exception because of X, Y, or Z. Um, and I don't think that's the case anymore. And I say that because I came, my wife helped me realize this in eating more humble pie, is that I would get so mad at people that would watch me coach my sons. And if they are doing 50 push-ups, I am doing 50 push-ups. If they require the rope climb, I do the rope climb. We run together, we swim together. You know,
mhm,
I put them through Navy drown proofing that is we do at dive school. And I thought to myself, a lot of dads, they'll say, well, you know, his sons are this way because his dad's an operator, or
Mm.
they go on the runs with him because his dad is a Green Beret. And it would drive me nuts. I'm like, no, that's a cop out, dude. Like, you couldn't do this too. And that's why, I founded Operator Mindset, because I said it's just a mindset. But also I had to eat my own humble pie going into the civilian sector and have the same mindset of like, I'm going to crush this, even though it's completely out of my realm and I
Yeah.
don't know where to start. I'm Dorothy, but there's no yellow brick road. I'm just staring off into nothing, hoping this works out. But I have to take that first step. So I was sitting here chastising fathers for not taking the step with their sons, and then blaming it on that they weren't the kind of person I am, when it's just a mindset, but I wasn't taking my own advice in the civilian sector and trying new things out of my comfort zone. And I finally am. This was step one.
Yeah. You be doing this.
Yeah.
That's a really, I think we should close with that. I think it's a really perfect way to highlight how, like, your strengths and the things that you're good at is what you just described, right? Rucking in the rain or whatever. Okay. It's hard. Yes. But that's your gifting is in that, right? What you know is in that. Whereas sitting on a podcast and talking for a couple hours, you never done that before. That's scary. That's new. I think we need to check ourselves on that frequently. And for me, what I found is that's where having that circle, like your buddies, who said, yeah, you're kind of an asshole, having those guys around you to kind of call you, pull your card a little bit, and then kind of push you out when you need it. Because it's very hard to be that self-motivated, self-disciplined, just comprehensively, right? You're going to naturally gravitate to what you're comfortable doing. And I found that by having these guys around me, who just from just knowing that they're going to know that I didn't do the thing or maybe drag an ass on something, and I'd rather not have to tell them that, that's enough of a motivator sometimes for me to step out and do the thing I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
You know? And having the humility to recognize that about yourself, for me, has been an accelerator for all the goals I wanted to accomplish. So any closing thoughts on maybe that little segment there?
It's funny because I just watched my first episode of Shark Tank, because I've always dreamt about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It was about seamless women's panties. And I remember they're saying, like, I've started and sold 9 businesses. And in my mind, I'm like, how did you do that? Like, is there a book or a roadmap or something? Like, how did you do that? And I look at this and I say, that's so impossible for me to do as just a normal Army guy. Like, how are they so hyper successful? But then they'll look at me and be like, wow, look at all the stuff you did. Like, that's crazy. And I'm like, that's really not that hard. Like, you just have to go through it. And I remember I saw there was a 4th round pick, an NFL player that got out of the NFL, and he tried out for selection and quit. And we all saw it, and we're like, okay. And I had a come to Jesus moment with myself, being like, maybe a lot more is internal than we think. The dude was hands down more talented than anybody I knew.
Yeah.
In any unit I'd been to, but it got too hard, and maybe it wasn't the path he wanted. So I think about that, and I couple that with me watching Shark Tank and seeing, like, this dude started and sold 9 successful businesses, and now he just says it like it's checking the mail. And I'm like, what? So what you said, it's getting out of our comfort zone. It's taking a step, and maybe you have to first recognize, maybe your wife or spouse needs to tell you, like, it's a 180-degree step. It's not just an off step, and you can't base it on what other people think is tough. So many people think soft and all these things are tough. And my wife, it's like, yeah, people think Harvard was really hard, but like, she's like, it wasn't that hard. I didn't think it was that hard. And I'm like, ooh, that would crush me.
Yeah. Hard is relative.
Yeah. Hard is relative to your strengths and weaknesses as a person. Harvard would crush me. She can't ruck 1 mile. It is what it is, or whatever. I took a practice exam for the LSAT. I couldn't finish one question.
Yeah. The last thing I want to like highlight on this too is that was a huge stumbling block I had in my own marriage, where I was like using that against my wife. Like, well, you couldn't do this kind of stuff, or you don't know me, or you don't understand what it's like to do blah, 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 this or that. And it was like I was forcing her to compete against me. And in hindsight, I'm like, man, I'm such an idiot. But I don't want her to have to do the things I did in the Army.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. But 2, I was just driving that wedge between us instead of allowing us to just deepen our connection on a soul level, right? Heart to heart. I was like pushing it away from that mentality of like us versus them, you know? And I just look back on my own life and think of, man, how many missed opportunities have I had now by subscribing to that mindset? Because I mean, I've only been doing this now, like really stepping out into building a business and stuff for like 2 years, right? And the amount of new connections and things that have happened positively in my life in just that short amount of time is like so many I couldn't even count them all.
Mm-hmm.
And now I look back and I'm like, man, how many of those were just out there trying to crack in, but I was too hard-headed to see them.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like it's scary to think about. And then even in my own marriage, right? How many good memories could have been made if I wouldn't have been such a hard-headed, you know, guy about that way of thinking. So I think this is something all men need to really take to heart. It's not just veterans, but I do have extra concern for veterans in general. I think we have allowed ourselves to buy into this. It's just a mental trap,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not helping us.
Yeah, they're horse blinders, and I think we don't free ourselves of the horse blinders, those things, to see the opportunities that could be for us. You know, and a lot of veterans especially go down a rabbit hole with that.
Mhm.
And you're right, I did the same thing with my wife. I did the same thing, and just recently, I guess it would be in the last 4 or 5 years, we've started to kind of verbally acknowledge each other's strengths and weaknesses. So we
Yeah.
come to each other, and we've made a really good cog together. And
Yeah.
be like, hey, like, you know, I can't learn this way. Like, this is a woman speaking on a podcast and like trying to explain this complex task. She gets it down pat. But if like I have to use my hands and I need, you know, so she'll do this. Or my favorite is she's like, all right, these are the 10 tasks that need to be done. Like, you need to divvy them out with backwards plan with a timeline and troops to task for each like kid. I'm like, sick. I
Yep.
love it. It like
Yep.
excites me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
There you go.
Yeah. Whether it's laundry and lawn, I like get fired up about it. So we've been able to divvy that up really well.
Yeah.
It's really strengthened our marriage. I love it.
All right. How long till you retire from today? It's the end of June.
It'll probably be spring of next year.
Okay.
Is when it
So
really
you got
hit.
about a year left.
I got about a year,
little
less than a year because of the process that it
Yep.
takes and stuff and what's going to happen. But yeah, I think given the medical things that happened to me just recently and all that stuff, and then where it's going, because I got med boarded, MEB'd a couple of times from different injuries, and I
Right.
fought them every time
to stay in. Yeah.
And I was like, no, I want to stay in. I want to keep serving. And then they're all hanging up there, and they're all kind of blooming now and coming to fruition. I'm like, well, these are adding up.
Yeah.
And people are starting to ask questions, and especially with the recent thing I went through, I had a tumor removed and stuff like that. So I
Jeez.
was like, okay, maybe. And that's when my wife was like, hey, you need to like go ahead and think about this like hard now. And then I called Nick, and I was like, all right, I need to figure this out because this is coming quick.
Yeah.
And right now, and I tell everybody the same thing I'm going to tell you. I said, "This like, what does it feel like?" I was like, "You know what it feels like? It feels like I'm Morgan Freeman. I'm standing outside of Shawshank with my suitcase, like looking around. Like, what am I supposed to do now? I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. And it's scary as hell. This is my whole life. I've known nothing else. You know, I worked at a car wash and a shoe store. I did nothing
And then
else.
you joined the Army.
And I joined the
Yeah.
Army. I know nothing else. And like, my people, my personality, my soul has been built and forged in this fire, and I need to break away, and I want to break away. And my like perfect scenario is 30 acres, some animals, you know, some chickens, like some mini goats or like something like that, where I can go out and do things. And like, I want to build something. I want to do this, drive a tractor. I really want my peace and quiet and just to hang out. I'm so excited about it.
I'm excited for you.
Thanks, brother.
Well, thanks for being courageously transparent about that kind of transition phase, because I think a lot of guys are afraid to be honest about those fears and worries. But yeah, just thank you, because I think it's gonna be very helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Appreciate it.
What a career you've had. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. We got more coming up.
The secret to success, resiliency, and progress towards your purpose, it's not a secret. It's not a secret. Everybody knows it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you man enough? Are you strong enough?
Yeah, are you interested or are you committed?
Exactly. Progress and comfort don't live in the same home. Walking in here today was terrifying. My heart was beating. I would have rather jumped out of an airplane, been in a firefight, or done anything else. I was like,
It must have just been my massive intimidating presence, right? So
I was like, he's gonna make me talk into a microphone. So this is my ultimate like step out of my growth, my comfort zone for growth.
What's one of the most surprising things you've learned after becoming a father?
I thought I had it all figured out. I have to take a pause and realize that this is something they're gonna embody, that they're gonna take over. It really hit me hard because I want them to be men of honor and men that I would love to be associated with. I know 3 Medal of Honor recipients. Like, I would love them to be the honorable men I know they can be. Better than me. 100 times better than me. A father dies on his deathbed happy when that's achieved. You're
Absolutely.
like, I succeeded, you know? Nothing else matters. Not your job, not millions of dollars. Nothing else matters. Did they become better human beings to serve a purpose in society than you could have ever imagined? You're a successful man.
Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you're on YouTube, drop a subscription to us, and if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a review. It helps greatly. If you are also ready to level up as a man, check out Elite Sentinel Coaching, our program designed specifically for men, where we forge men into leaders. We turn cowards into kings, weaklings into warriors. Become the hero in your story. Join us today.